Officials say Jace made the 911 call and admitted that he had shot his wife.
I didn't commit first-degree murder. There was no premeditated anything. I realize it does not bring her back.
In 2002, Michael Jace was Hollywood's pride. The star of The Shield carried a gentle, honest smile. He was a moral husband, a model actor, a devoted father. But 12 years later, those same hands pulled the trigger. In front of his 2 children, Michael Jace made the woman he had vowed to love forever collapse to the floor. His confession stunned Hollywood. "I just wanted her to feel the pain I felt." It was a fall from glory into the abyss, and the darkest secret of Michael Jace would soon leave the world breathless. From the very beginning, Michael Jace was a child born into darkness. Michael Andrew Jace was born in 1962 in Paterson, New Jersey, a gray industrial city of immigrant workers and endless factory sirens. Paterson wasn't a place for dreamers. It taught people how to survive, not how to hope. His mother worked night shifts. His father was rarely home, and Michael learned early what it meant to be strong. At Hackensack High School, Michael learned how to hide his feelings. On the surface, he was an energetic basketball and baseball player, but inside, he was torn apart. At 16, he lost his best friend in a street fight. That night, Michael came home, stared at the cracked mirror in the bathroom, and asked himself, "If I left this place, would things be different?" A year later, fate opened an unexpected door. When he followed his girlfriend to a school theater rehearsal, Michael stood backstage watching her perform. The scene, the light on her face, the silence of the crowd made his heart pound. "I want to feel that." From that moment, a small fire was lit inside him. Michael left Paterson and moved to New York, enrolling at the Classic Stage Conservatory to study acting. He lived in a rundown rented room, survived on instant noodles, and taped his lines all over the walls. Friends said he would rehearse alone until 3 in the morning, then fall asleep on the floor. From the gray streets of Paterson, Michael went further than anyone had ever believed he could, entering Hollywood and the dark side of fame. In the early 1990s, he drifted from set to set, taking small roles in Law & Order, Forrest Gump, Boogie Nights, anything that could help him survive. From blurry background scenes, he slowly began to stand out. No matter the role, soldier, criminal, lonely father, Michael brought depth to his characters. Directors liked him for his eyes, sad, yet burning with intensity. Then, in 2002, his golden opportunity arrived. FX cast him as Julian Lowe in The Shield, a groundbreaking crime drama that shook American television from 2002 to 2008. He appeared in 89 episodes, becoming a core member of the main cast. Julian wasn't just a cop, he was a symbol of inner conflict, a man of faith torn by his own darkness, and Michael played him as if he truly lived it. The Shield exploded from its first season with over 4.8 million viewers per episode, breaking FX's ratings records and earning more than $100 million in syndication. The cast won a 2003 Golden Globe and Emmy, and critics hailed it as the Sopranos of police dramas. Michael's salary rose from $7,500 per episode in the first season to $20,000 in later seasons. After The Shield, he didn't fade away immediately. He went on to appear in Southland 2009, 2013, and smaller roles in CSI: The Mentalist and Burn Notice. From the outside, Michael Jace looked like the purest American dream: a successful actor, a devoted father, a faithful husband. He married April Lawn, a talented college track athlete from UCLA. She was beautiful, energetic, and deeply religious. They met at a church event where Michael spoke about his spiritual journey. They married in 2003 in a small, simple ceremony filled with candles and prayer. He bought a $700,000 home in South Los Angeles, a new car, and sent their children to private school. Friends recalled how Michael often showed off photos of his wife and kids, calling April "my blessing." Together, they taught Bible study for teenagers at their local church. The public loved them, a kind, successful, middle-class black couple grounded in faith amid the chaos of Hollywood. To the public, Michael was a rare example of a man of faith in America, church-going, family-oriented, and scandal-free. The press called him the Shield's moral compass. He once told People magazine, "I don't need to be a star. I just want to do this for the rest of my life." But when The Shield ended in 2008, the lights went out with it. Debt, desperation, and darkness. In March 2011, once a celebrated face on television, Michael Jace became a debtor in the heart of Hollywood. He filed for bankruptcy protection under Chapter 13. In the documents submitted to federal court, he reported owing more than $500,000 against only $325,000 in assets, meaning his debt far exceeded his ability to pay. His liabilities included more than $22,000 in taxes, $16,000 in credit card debt, personal loans, and 2 mortgages on his home in the Hyde Park area of Los Angeles. That very house would later become the scene of the crime that shocked all of Hollywood. The filings were brutally detailed. He owed his children's school fees, insurance premiums, medical bills, and even a $1,300 debt to friends. Each month, interest ballooned and red warning envelopes piled up in the mailbox. He struggled to pay $2,500 a month for his mortgage, while his income had dropped to just $6,000. Every bill was a cut to his pride. Every call from a creditor felt like a hammer striking his head. In his statements, Jace admitted that his annual income had fallen to $80,000, mostly from residuals from The Shield. For an actor who once walked the red carpet alongside television stars, that number marked a collapse. Losing roles, losing chances abandoned by Hollywood. Before the downfall, Michael Jace had held a solid position in the television world thanks to The Shield. But when the series wrapped in 2008, major roles became scarce. Directors were unwilling to take risks on a face too closely tied to the image of the righteous man. He was typecast, offered only supporting parts, cops, security guards, bit roles with a few lines. Opportunities for black actors were shrinking, while new names like Idris Elba and Michael B. Jordan were on the rise. No roles, no ad deals, no steady income. Hollywood is ruthless today. You're celebrated tomorrow. You're forgotten. Meanwhile, April Jace, the wife he married in 2003, was growing stronger and more self-assured. She worked at Biola University as a student financial aid counselor. Her job was steady, respected, and paid well. As Michael struggled with sporadic acting work, April became the family's main breadwinner. It seemed normal from the outside, but for a man with deep pride like Michael, it was a wound that never healed. Michael began living in darkness, consumed by jealousy, control, and a growing obsession with power. Whenever April Jace left the house, he called her constantly. He checked her phone bills, read her messages, asked where she was going, and when she would be home. One of April's friends recalled that she once received dozens of missed calls from Michael in a single afternoon. He was jealous, but without any real reason. He was just afraid of losing her, the friend said. His controlling behavior grew worse over time. April once sought refuge at a temporary shelter, telling staff she felt suffocated and afraid. She didn't give details, only saying, "I fear his eyes more than anything else." Jace, meanwhile, justified his jealousy through religion. "I'm just protecting my marriage as God commands." He didn't realize that this kind of protection was strangling the woman he loved. The story of violence in Michael Jace's life didn't begin with April. It began with his first wife, Jennifer Bitterman. In her 1997 divorce filing, Bitterman accused Jace of abuse and threats, saying he told her she would not live to see tomorrow if she tried to take their child without permission. A friend testified in court that she had seen Jace lose control with Jennifer. Bitterman described him as extremely controlling, always wanting to know where she was and who she was with, exploding in anger if she didn't answer the phone immediately. In the court filings, she wrote, "He said that if I took our child without his permission, I wouldn't live to see tomorrow." Police at the time did not pursue criminal charges due to a lack of direct evidence, but her statements were preserved in civil court records, a stain that the public never knew about. When Jace rose to fame with The Shield, that file was almost forgotten. Many believed that his success had buried the old disgrace, and even Jace himself began to believe that his past had vanished. But it was only hiding beneath the moral facade he tried so hard to wear. Nearly 20 years later, the same pattern returned in his marriage with April Jace. Her friends described Michael as pathologically jealous. After 2010, financial troubles, unemployment, and wounded pride made him increasingly unstable. Friends called him eerily quiet, and he often said, "God is testing me beyond what I can bear." Inside their home, April lived in fear. A neighbor told the Los Angeles Times, They argued almost every night. I once heard a door slam and her crying. Yet when they saw each other outside, they smiled and greeted like any normal couple. It was a mask both of them wore, especially Michael, who didn't want anyone to know his life was falling apart. By 2013, Jace began telling close friends that he couldn't take it anymore. He was convinced April wanted to leave him, and to him that meant betrayal. The late-night interrogations, the endless messages and phone calls were the final cracks in a breaking mind. None of his friends imagined it would go this far. They only saw a tired, bitter, darker version of the man they once knew. But in Michael's mind, a plan had already formed a plan to teach her a lesson. A plan that months later on the night of May 19, 2014 would turn their home in Hyde Park into the scene of an unforgivable crime. The night of the Hollywood tragedy. Monday night, May 19, 2014, Hyde Park, South Los Angeles. A quiet neighborhood where the sound of children playing was far more common than the sound of gunfire. At around 8:30 p.m., sharp cracking sounds echoed from the house at 5400 Brynhurst Avenue. 3 gunshots. Then silence. Then the sound of children screaming. Neighbors grabbed their phones and dialed 911. Inside, Michael Jace, the actor once famous for playing a moral cop on The Shield, was trembling as he told the dispatcher, "I just shot my wife." That single sentence, recorded on Los Angeles police tapes, marked the beginning of a case that would leave Hollywood in shock. The husband waiting in the dark. That evening, April had just returned home with their 2 young sons, Nehemiah 8 and Caleb 5, after baseball practice. She parked the car in the garage, carried her sports bag, and walked into the house. Michael was waiting. The argument erupted the moment she stepped inside. No one but the children heard everything. Only the echo of April's screams that reached the street outside. When she turned to run, the first bullet struck her in the back. April fell but tried to crawl away. Michael approached her, dragging her into the hallway outside the boys' bedroom. Then he said in a voice cold as steel, "If your mom likes running, then she can run to heaven." The words cut deeper than the bullets. They mocked her very passion. As April had once been a college track athlete. Seconds later, 2 more shots rang out, this time aimed at her legs. Prosecutors later confirmed 1 bullet to the back, 2 to the legs. This wasn't a sudden outburst. It was deliberate punishment. Michael wanted her to feel pain. But what horrified everyone even more was that the 2 boys, Nehemiah and Caleb, stood just a few feet away in the doorway of their bedroom. They heard everything and became witnesses to the crime committed by their own father. At the trial, Nehemiah testified, "I saw Dad pull Mom. He told her to run to heaven, then he shot her." His words silenced the courtroom. Even the prosecutor paused before continuing. When the shots stopped, the house fell quiet. Michael Jace sat down on the floor, the gun beside him. April lay motionless. The children cried in the corner. No attempt to flee, no effort to hide, just a man collapsed in darkness, and 3 bullets that ended everything. The moment the police arrived. When officers arrived, the front door was open. Michael stood still in the hallway. His hands raised the gun lying on the floor. April Jace was face down. The 2 children were rushed outside, trembling in shock. The next morning, a neighbor recalled, "That scene will haunt me forever." The police carried the kids out. They were screaming for their mother. Michael just stood there silent with empty eyes. The interrogation and the confession. He was arrested that night around 3 a.m. on May 20th. Throughout the night, Michael Jace sat in an LAPD interrogation room. He said almost nothing until the detective asked him why. When the detective said, "Why did you do it?" Jace simply replied, "I just wanted her to feel the pain I felt." That statement, quoted verbatim in the interrogation transcript, became the centerpiece of the prosecution's case. Prosecutors argued that Jace had not acted in rage, but in cold, deliberate punishment. They determined the motive was long-standing marital conflict. April had told friends she wanted a divorce. Michael knew this, and in his jealousy and wounded pride saw it as betrayal. Investigators recovered a legally registered Smith & Wesson handgun under Jace's name. At the 2016 trial, prosecutors presented evidence showing that Jace had waited for his wife to return home in order to teach her a lesson. He knew her and the children's baseball practice schedule, retrieved his gun beforehand, and lay in wait. Text messages, witness testimonies, and the 911 call together painted a clear picture. This was a premeditated killing. The defense argued that Jace suffered from depression and a mental breakdown caused by debt and emotional distress. But the jury took less than 2 hours to reach a verdict guilty of second-degree murder. On June 10, 2016, the Los Angeles Superior Court sentenced him to 40 years to life in prison with no possibility of parole for the first 25 years. The judge stated, "You destroyed not only one life, but 2 children's lives and your own image." No one in the courtroom cried. Only the sound of a pen signing the verdict and the hollow stare of a man once hailed by Hollywood as the most righteous cop in America. When asked if he wished to say anything before being led away, Jace turned slightly toward the gallery, where 2 of his relatives sat, and said softly, "Tell my sons, I love them." Faith twisted and broken. The Michael Jace case shook America not only for its violence, but for the brutal contrast between the man's public image and his true self. He had betrayed his own faith. On screen, he was a devout, righteous officer who believed in justice. In life, he preached about God-taught Bible study and appeared to live virtuously. But on the night of May 19th, that faith turned into a weapon. He appointed himself judge-executioner and the arbiter of divine punishment against the woman he claimed to love with all his soul. The LAPD chief said at a press conference the next morning, he didn't run. He stayed as if he wanted the world to see, "I did what I believed was right." But around this case, there were still chilling secrets few people knew. The last call, a confession to his father-in-law. After shooting his wife, Jace did not flee. He called 911, then phoned his father-in-law, confessed what he had done, and asked him to pick up the children. In an audio recording later published by The Guardian, April's father told the dispatcher, "My son-in-law just called. He said he shot April. I'm on my way to get the kids." It wasn't just a confession. It was the raw acceptance of a man who believed he had carried out his own version of justice. A moment of madness disguised as faith. And there was one more secret that few ever knew. The secret inside the locked iPhone. When police recovered April's iPhone 5S, it was locked. The LAPD requested a court order asking Apple to unlock the device, but the phone could not be powered on. The data extraction failed, and with it, many messages and calls exchanged between the couple before the murder were lost forever. Prosecutors believed that phone contained evidence of their deteriorating relationship, threats, controlling messages, perhaps even a draft of a divorce request. The phone's silence became a symbol of the marriage itself. All the answers forever locked away. After the night of the crime, their 2 sons were placed under the care of relatives. Biola University, where April worked, held a candlelight vigil in her honor. Hundreds of students, colleagues, and friends gathered to pray and weep. "I can't understand how this could happen," one student told the Los Angeles Times. She was the one helping others through financial hardship. And now she's gone killed by the person she trusted most. Michael Jace was sent to a California state prison registered as inmate number AN8458. According to correctional reports, he lived in near total isolation. He spoke little, avoided group activities, and did not join rehabilitation programs. His days began and ended with the Bible. A prison guard told the Los Angeles Times, "He sits in the corner reading for hours. When I asked what he was reading, he said, 'The Book of Job.' In Scripture, the Book of Job tells of a man tested beyond measure, who loses his wealth, his family, and his faith, yet still believes that God remains." Perhaps Jace saw himself in that story. But unlike Job, he had no one left to return to. The letters that were never answered. In prison, Jace was allowed to send letters twice a month. Most were written to his 2 sons, Nehemiah and Caleb, and kept by relatives. In one letter from 2018, he wrote, "I have committed the greatest sin of my life. If God is still listening, please forgive me. God still loves me, I know that now." He said that he prayed every morning for his wife, his children, and those who were hurt by my sins. There is no evidence that his sons ever replied. Both boys were adopted by their maternal relatives, had their last names changed, and have stayed away from the media. Now teenagers, they live quietly with their mother's family. No one knows whether they still carry the name Jace. According to one relative, they've been in therapy since they were little, and they're taught that not every father is like theirs. A journalist once wrote in The Guardian, Hollywood lost an actor, but two children lost both worlds, the father they knew and the one they saw on screen. A former inmate who shared the same cell block told, "People he prays every day, always bows his head before meals, but his eyes are full of guilt. Not the eyes of a man seeking redemption, but of someone who can never forget what he's done." A life without a role. In prison, Jace was no longer an actor, no longer a husband, no longer a man of God. He was just a frail, middle-aged inmate, his hair prematurely gray, his eyes dull from sleepless nights. Prison staff said he rarely caused trouble, never asked for special favors, and quietly did menial work in the prison library. In 2023, when a Daily Mail reporter wrote to request an interview, Jace replied with a single line, "I am still seeking forgiveness, not fame." Michael Jace will not be eligible for parole until 2041, when he will be 79 years old. If he is ever released, he will walk into a world where no one remembers him except for the old headlines that read, "The Shield star kills wife." The night of May 19, 2014, did not just end the marriage of Michael and April Jace. It ended an entire illusion that millions once believed was real. The man who once played the most righteous cop in Hollywood now lives behind bars, while his two sons, the smallest witnesses to the crime, carry that memory for life. Those 3 gunshots didn't just kill a woman. They killed the image of a moral man that Hollywood once celebrated. 2025, The Last Door of Appeal. Closes 11 years after the night of the crime. The name Michael Jace, once beloved by millions, appeared in court records once again. But this time, there were no cameras, no headlines, only a prisoner clinging to his final thread of hope. In August 2025, the California Court of Appeal officially denied Jace's resentencing motion filed from Corcoran State Prison. In his petition, he pleaded for his 40 years to life sentence to be reconsidered, arguing that it was too severe, and requesting the removal of the gun enhancement clause, which had added at least 15 extra years to his term. However, the 3-judge panel unanimously rejected the motion. The decision read, "There is no legal basis to reconsider the sentence. There is no evidence suggesting the defendant was not the perpetrator." According to My News LA, this was Jace's second attempt at appeal. In 2019, he had previously filed for a sentence reduction on similar grounds, claiming that the gun enhancement violated humanitarian principles. The local court had flatly denied it. This was not a case of self-defense. It was deliberate, premeditated, and preceded by verbal threats, stated the 2019 court response. The 2025 ruling further noted that although California law has been adjusted in recent years to allow certain second-degree murder convicts to seek sentence reductions if they can prove a lack of direct intent to kill, Jace did not qualify. The court determined he had prepared the gun in advance, waited for his wife to come home, and admitted that his actions were meant as punishment. Since then, all legal avenues for Michael Jace have effectively closed. He remains incarcerated at Corcoran State Prison, one of California's highest security facilities. As of September 2025, inmate number AN8458 is listed as low disciplinary risk, meaning he does not cause trouble, but also does not participate in rehabilitation programs. An internal source told My News LA he lives quietly, hardly talks to anyone, just reads the Bible. Sometimes when people ask, he just says, "I received the sentence I deserve." With no lawyer representing him and no one following his case, the final legal door has closed, leaving behind a man who once preached about justice and faith, now sitting silently in his cell, reading the same scriptures he once used to justify his sins. The remains of a life. When police searched the house after the murder, they found almost nothing of value. One investigator described in the report the house was empty. Only a few family photos, an old TV, and a couple of Bibles remained. After his conviction, all of Jace's remaining assets, including image royalties, pension funds from the Screen Actors Guild, SAG-AFTRA, and his bank accounts, were transferred by court order to his 2 sons, under the supervision of their maternal family. At his career peak, Jace's total earnings from Forrest Gump through The Shield were estimated at between $1.2 and $1.5 million. But by the time of his arrest, his net worth was nearly zero, lost to unemployment, mortgage debt, credit cards, and a lifestyle that exceeded his means. Ironically, as The Shield continued to air in reruns and was sold to streaming platforms, royalties from Jace's performance still accrued, but were frozen. By law, those funds are transferred directly to his legal beneficiaries, his sons, through a court-administered trust, since he no longer has access to them. A former The Shield crew member told People Michael had it all. Fame, money, a beautiful family. But he lost everything. Not in one night, but little by little. When he pulled that trigger, everything left was zero. The legacy of a fallen man. In Hollywood, people forgive addicts, cheaters, even con artists. But they never forgive a man who kills his own family. Michael Jace's name vanished from every The Shield credit list, erased from reruns and struck from the SAG-AFTRA membership roll. No retired no in memoriam, just absence. As if he had never existed. Yet Hollywood cannot truly forget him. Because Julian Lowe, the devout, conflicted cop he once portrayed, has become a chilling prophecy of his own life, a fictional character turned into a real tragedy. In a 2006 interview, Michael Jace once said, "I believe anyone can find their way back to God, no matter how far they've strayed." 19 years later, that line became the bitterest irony of his life. Because when he looks into the mirror of his Corcoran prison cell each morning, the man staring back is no longer a man of God, but someone who killed the faith within himself. If any legacy remains, it is not fame or art, but a cruel lesson about the limits of faith and the dangers of power. Michael Jace will not be eligible for parole until 2041. By then, he will be 79 years old enough to understand that some sins can never be erased and some roles a man can never escape. Do we ever truly know the people we call heroes?
All data, analysis, and commentary in this video are presented based on information available at the time of production. The content is subject to change over time and should not be considered a definitive forecast.
There is still so much more to explore. Stories of resilience, legacy, and truth. Feel free to dive into some of our top recommended videos now appearing on your screen.